Next on the Delaware Way, teaching men the rules of the MeToo movement and the ugly history of how the disabled have been treated in Delaware. This is the Delaware Way. Welcome to the Delaware Way. I'm Larry Menti. We are in a MeToo era, and with that comes some new rules in the workplace and new rules in society, and sometimes men are left perplexed on what they're supposed to do. Amy Hopkins is helping with that. She is the coordinator for the Engaging Men Project with the Delaware Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting
me. Did I
me.
phrase that right? I mean,
yes.
are there new rules, or maybe these are rules that should have been in place all along?
New rules?
Yeah.
I think it's just an awareness that's kind of going on now with the Me Too movement. People are coming forward about what our culture has technically kind of let slide recently with things in regards to the Me Too movement.
Well, let me give you an example. After the Matt Lauer incident, NBC came out with new rules. And they were saying hugs should only last a certain amount of time, that people shouldn't share cabs together of the opposite sex, that you had to be careful of having meetings after work in a social setting, and you had to report those meetings. It seemed like it was a little onerous. It seemed like it was a little overboard. And so when people hear stories like that, they're like, well, what am I allowed to do in my workplace? And when you're dealing with men, do you find that confusion as well?
Not necessarily. I think it's all about consent and asking someone what they're comfortable with. If you're not sure about a type of behavior that you're performing, then maybe just ask the person if they're comfortable with it. That's a great thing that the Delaware Men Project has going on. The Delaware Men's Education Network is we are working to engage men and engage everyone in the movement against sexual violence.
And how does that work when you talk to men? Are they, A, willing participants, and B, do they understand what their role is?
Definitely, yeah. We have some great partners with Delaware Men. We're engaged with the Delaware National Guard. We are with a youth empowerment program for youth. We have many different partners, many different men that are a part of our network, and they're all gung-ho about coming forward and helping with things aftermath of Me Too, and also just coming together to learn more about what they can do in the effort to prevent domestic and sexual violence.
So we already got into what your project does, and I'm going to step back for a second and just ask you what your goal is and how this started.
Great. So we've launched a campaign with the hashtag I Will in response to the hashtag MeToo. And the I Will is having community members come forward and proclaim what they can do and pledge what they can do to prevent sexual violence in their community. So we're taking the onus off of victims to come forward and out themselves as victims with their MeToo movement, but also to give power to the community to say that it's not just a women's issue to come forward, it's everyone's issue to come forward in the community to promote safety and prevent violence.
In a workplace, do you think that HR would like that? They want their own ways, right? I mean, they want to say to somebody, this is the way you're supposed to behave. You don't come up with your own. You don't come up with your own set of behavior, do you?
Well, the great thing about the I Will campaign is that it's promoting everyone to get involved. It's promoting everyone in the community to be proactive, and it's promoting prevention. It's promoting, a safe environment where everyone can feel safe and share what they will do to prevent sexual violence. It's not just for victims to come forward. It's not just for perpetrators to come forward. It's for everyone in the community, because we know that when there's less violence in the community, sexual and domestic violence in the community, we know that everyone will thrive.
Yeah, I think there's, and there shouldn't be. I'll admit up front that there shouldn't be, but I think that there's some confusion about what the new rules are and what you're allowed to do. And what happens much of the time, I've seen it happen, is that men in the workplace and men in social settings sometimes don't want to engage with women because they're not sure what the rules are. And that's that would be worse for the women's movement, wouldn't it? I mean, because it keeps them out of some important social settings, some important conversations, and some important meetings.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to, you know, the work that Delaware Men is doing. We're really trying to engage men in types of healthy masculinity and different types of things that allow everyone to come to the table and for no one to feel uncomfortable. If your behavior is making someone feel uncomfortable and maybe you're not sure if it's making them feel uncomfortable, you know, you just have to ask. It's about consent, really.
And that's interesting, but the communication has to go two ways, right? I mean, it can't just be somebody saying, are you uncomfortable with this? It has to be somebody speaking up and saying, I'm uncomfortable with this, and then you reacting to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you also have to recognize the power dynamic. Sometimes someone can't always speak up in a situation. You keep bringing up the workplace. It's kind of like that. A lot of times people in the workplace have a fear of standing up for themselves, you know, fear for repercussions of what might happen to them. So that's why it's so great with the I Will campaign, because we are really promoting everyone to get involved and not, like I said, taking the onus back onto the victims to come forward with their stories. It's not just up to people who have been sexually harassed or sexually abused to come forward with their stories to raise awareness. It's up to everyone to raise awareness, because we know that when violence doesn't occur in our community, that we will all be better.
What are some of the things that people have tweeted with I Will? What are some of the things they said they would do?
Great question. So I did an event last night and we had quite a few men come up and make some pledges, and one was, he said that he would be a positive role model for young black men. We had one that said, I will speak out, one that said, I will empower survivors, I will listen, I will start by believing. There's a lot of great messages going on.
And that's wonderful. And this is, you said it was for April, but this is a forever project?
Yeah, I think we're going to keep it going. We're getting a lot of good messages. Yeah.
I think it's an important thing that you're doing. I think the communication part that you were talking about is the most important part, because you don't want two camps.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want people to separate over an issue. You want them to talk and be able to solve the issue. And so it's an important first step.
Yeah, definitely. We all want to come together to work on this.
I appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Amy Hopkins is the coordinator of Engaging Men Project with the Delaware Coalition of Domestic Violence. When we come back, the rights of the disabled in Delaware. Everyone should know them, not just the disabled. We'll talk about it when the Delaware Way continues.